And Home Affairs Minister Peter Duttons spoke a short time ago in Townsville in North Queensland. So that's where the most marginal seat in the country is. The seat of Herbert only need 30 votes or so is the difference there between the two major parties. Let's take a listen now to what Peter Dutton has had to say there in the last hour or so.
I'm here today, along with Phil, to make a very important announcement. That is the Coalition's border protection policy. Obviously, this is one of the defining issues of this election, and the difference now between the two parties when it comes to border protection is more stark than it's ever been. And we know that Bill Shorten has a track record, as Labor does, of not being able to manage borders, just like they can't manage money. And the government over the last 6 years has worked day and night to clean up Labor's border protection disaster. All Australians should remember when they go to vote at this election that 50,000 people arrived on 800 boats and 1,200 people, including women and children, drowned at sea. Under Labor, 8,000 children went into detention, and we've been able to not only stop the deaths at sea, but we've been able to get people off Manus and Nauru that Labor put there. We've been able to get all of those children out of detention, and we've been able to make sure that the boats don't restart. And so the promise that we make to the Australian people is that our policy on Operation Sovereign Borders will continue, and we cannot take our foot off the pedal here. This is an enduring problem, it's an enduring threat, and the fact that Labor is proposing to undo regional processing through their Medivac bill, the fact that Labor is proposing to go soft on turning back boats where it's safe to do so, and the fact that they just don't have the ability or the desire within the Labor Party to keep those boats stopped, it is a big issue at this election. I know it's a big issue here in Townsville and in other seats across the country as well, but here in Townsville we've got Cathy O'Toole, who is not only soft on Adani, but she's also soft on borders. And Cathy O'Toole is one of the people that in a Labor government led by Mr Shorten would be knocking on his door telling him to water down the border protection policies. And we have many people to thank for the success of Operation Sovereign Borders, but some of those who need most recognition and most thanks for their work are those people that have served in the Australian Defence Force, in particular in the Navy, those people that have been involved in enforcing our borders, working alongside the Australian Border Force personnel. Those people have said to me over a long period of time, for whatever you do not change the Operation Sovereign Borders settings, because we don't want to be pulling those bodies out of the water again. And unfortunately, that's exactly what Cathy O'Toole, other Labor candidates and Mr Shorten offer by way of option at this election. And we've done a lot, as I say, to get our borders secure. There's a lot that we've done otherwise. Not only have we been able to turn back boats and to intercept boats, and indeed in 80 cases been able to stop those boats from coming to our country. Had those boats got through, we would have seen hundreds of boats behind them. Hundreds of boats would have followed, and we would have been back in exactly the same situation that Labor presided over. So if people think that the problem has been solved, that you can vote for the Labor Party and get tough borders at this election, you are dead wrong. You need to look at what Mr Shorten's announced already, and it's a massive softening of border protection policy. And so if protection of our borders and national security is important for you at this election, then please vote for Philip Thompson, vote for your Liberal or National Party candidate across the country. I just want to make a couple of other points. We announced today a $50 million fund to provide support to regional airports to beef up the security screening at those airports. That will be of benefit to an airport like Townsville, but elsewhere, and that will allow us the ability to make sure that people who are flying, given the fact that millions of Australians travel each year, we're a big country and we rely on a safe network. We stopped, fortunately, an attempt to bring down an Etihad flight, an A380, only 2 years ago in our country. We have returning foreign fighters, and it's why we need to get national security right. We're also putting more into our anti-gangs task force, and we're putting significant investment into illicit tobacco as well, because it's about $600 million a year in revenue that the Commonwealth loses because of illicit tobacco brought across our borders, and much of the proceeds or the profits from that illicit trade end up back in the hands of organised criminals. So there's a lot that we're providing for in terms of continuity in terms of our border protection policy, but also what we're doing to provide support to the Australian Federal Police and the other agencies in Home Affairs. It's obvious now, and we're hearing whispers out of Labor, that Mr Shane Newman is going to be the Home Affairs Minister if Mr Shorten is elected as the Labor Prime Minister in this country. That should send a shiver down the spine of anybody concerned about border protection in this country. I mean, he is one of the weakest people in the Parliament. The people smugglers would be rubbing their hands together at the prospect of Shane Newman becoming the Home Affairs Minister in this country. And Mr Shorten needs to explain why he's reluctant to make that announcement. Even 8 days, 9 days out from the election, Mr Shorten still refuses to say who would be his Home Affairs Minister. So I'm going to ask Phil to make a few comments, and then I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you.